The German Shepherd lay curled up in the darkest corner of the kennel as if trying to disappear. He didn't lift his head. He didn't move a muscle. Not when the girl's soft footsteps echoed down the long, cold corridor. Not even when her small, shaky voice broke the silence with a name that hadn't been spoken aloud in what felt like a lifetime. Ranger. The word was quiet, barely above a whisper. But in that still room, it echoed like thunder in her chest. Everyone at the rescue center stopped what they were doing. The quiet that followed felt strange and heavy, like the air had thickened. No one dared to speak. Even the walls seemed to pull inward, as if something important was happening and the world needed to pause. There was no excited bark, no thump of a tail, no flicker of recognition in the dog's dull, lifeless eyes. Just the image of a body that looked like it had folded in on itself. Like life had knocked on his door too many times and he'd finally stopped answering. For a moment, even, the building itself seemed frozen like time held its breath. Amelia's fingers curled tightly around the cold metal bars. Her knuckles went white. She didn't cry, not yet, but something inside her chest squeezed hard. The air felt charged, as if a ghost from the past was standing beside her. Waiting. In that heavy silence, memories started to stir. Quiet, fragile. Pieces of a story that had waited years to be remembered. They rose slowly, like mist rolling in across a field. And Amelia couldn't stop her mind from drifting backward. 7 years earlier, the world had looked and felt different. The air always smelled like hay and fresh rain. Her days moved slow and gentle on her grandparents' old farm. She remembered one late autumn afternoon so clearly. The sky had turned copper orange and the breeze smelled of falling leaves. The school bus let her off at the edge of the long dirt road that led to the farmhouse. She had started walking home, lost in her own quiet thoughts. When she saw movement in the tall hedges, she stopped. Out from the shadow stepped a German Shepherd puppy, his paws too big for his thin legs. His ribs showed faintly beneath his short fur, and one of his ears drooped to the side like it hadn't figured out how to stand up yet. Their eyes met. His were sharp and cautious, but not afraid. Not quite. Amelia didn't move. She didn't want to startle him. Slowly, carefully, she slid her backpack off and crouched down. "Hey." "It's okay," she whispered, her voice barely louder than the wind. The pup didn't bark, didn't growl, just tilted his head and stared at her like he was trying to decide if she was worth trusting. She reached out her hand, palm open, fingers relaxed. A long second passed, then another. Then the tiniest shift, a single trembling step. Another, and finally the softest wag of his thin little tail. Amelia smiled wide and without holding back. "That's it," she breathed. "You're safe now." By the time she reached the front steps of the farmhouse, the pup was walking beside her, so close their shoulders brushed. Neither of them knew then how much that short walk would mean, how it would be the first strand of something that would stretch and hold. Between them for years. The rhythm of the farm changed after that. Ranger wasn't just a dog. He became her shadow, always by her side. Mornings started with the sound of his paws tapping the wood floor. Nights ended with his warm weight curled beside her bed, his slow breathing matching hers. He learned quickly, without needing many words. 2 whistles meant come. A gentle tap on the floor meant dinner. It was like they had their own private language. They raced through golden fields, laughter tangled with the wind. On rainy days, Amelia would sit under the oak tree with a book, and Ranger would rest against her, his head in her lap. She read to him sometimes, not because he understood, but because the sound of her voice seemed to make the world gentler. Her grandparents used to say, Ranger had the kind of eyes that saw everything without judgment. Eyes that held steady when the rest of the world shook, and Amelia believed it. He noticed when her hands trembled before school. He watched when she stayed by the window on nights the house felt too big. With Ranger nearby, nothing ever felt quite so lonely. He filled the small spaces of her life moments so ordinary, yet somehow made sacred by his quiet presence. Each shared glance, every soft whistle, every walk down the same path was a thread stitching them tighter together. A thread that would stretch but never break. Then came the day that changed everything. A day that started just like any other and ended up burned into her memory forever. She had ridden her bike home from school, the wind in her hair, her backpack thumping against the seat. She could already picture Ranger by the gate, tail sweeping the dirt in that happy, familiar way. But something was off. When she rounded the last bend, the gate was open, swinging slowly in the wind. The yard was still. Too still? Ranger? She called, letting her bike crash to the ground as she ran. No sound. No bark, no thundering pause. Just dry leaves scratching the ground and the soft creak of metal. Her heart raced. She whistled twice sharp and clear. A call Ranger never ignored. Nothing. Then a neighbor appeared at the edge of the field. He wiped his hands on his overalls, hesitated, and finally said, in a quiet, heavy voice, the kind people use when they know what they're about to say will hurt, "I saw a white truck earlier. Stopped right by your gate." There was something strange about the way the man spoke, quiet, almost careful, like he didn't want to break her. "There was a dog," he said. "A shepherd." Amelia's heart skipped. She barely blinked. "What kind of shepherd?" she asked, though deep down, her body already knew the answer. The man shifted on his feet. "Looked like he didn't want to get in," he said softly. "Are you sure?" Her voice cracked as she said it. She didn't mean to sound desperate, but she was. He nodded slowly, his eyes full of something close to regret. "Can't promise." "It was yours, but the eyes, they looked just like him. That same quiet sadness, that same tail tucked low like he was apologizing for breathing." Amelia couldn't move. Her knees gave out inside her jeans, and it felt like the ground dropped from under her. For one breathless second, she wasn't standing anymore. She was floating, weightless, numb, as if the world had tilted sideways and forgot to warn her. Arms felt cold, her mouth dry. Her thoughts scrambled in all directions, but one word crashed through the middle of it all like a boulder shattering glass. Taken. Not missing. Not lost. Taken. It hit her like a blade to the ribs, sharp, sudden, and so deep it took her breath. The word rooted in her chest, heavy and jagged. Her throat tightened like it was closing up, and each breath she tried to take felt like climbing a hill in a storm. Around her, the world blurred into a dull watercolor, washed out and too quiet. The neighbor's voice faded like a distant echo. Rustling in the wheat fields vanished. Even the old farmhouse, with its familiar shape and worn-out shutters, seemed like a memory. The only thing she could hear was the sound of her own heartbeat, pounding like a drum inside her ears. She wanted to scream. She wanted to run down the dirt road and keep running. Until she found him. She wanted to pull Ranger back home with her own bare hands, but her body refused. Her voice got stuck in her chest. The scream never came. That night, nothing felt right. The farm didn't feel like it used to. It wasn't warm or safe anymore. It felt like a ghost house. Too big, too quiet. Every room echoed. Every shadow looked like Ranger coming home, but his food bowl sat in the kitchen, untouched, like a question no one could answer. His old blanket in the corner stayed perfectly folded, as if waiting, and Amelia. Amelia couldn't bear it. She sat on the porch steps, arms wrapped around her knees, the wood beneath her cold and full of splinters. The sun was gone, the sky turning ink black, and still she sat. She whistled. 2 short, sharp notes, just like she used to when calling him in for dinner. The sound came out shaky, trembling at the edges, As if even the night air knew it wouldn't be enough. Again she whistled. Then again. Then again. Her lips turned numb, but she didn't stop. It was the only thing she knew how to do anymore. Whistle. Wait. Hope. When the stars finally showed themselves, she was still there. The silence pressed around her like a blanket, too heavy to shake off. Her grandparents found her sitting like that and gently led her inside, their hands soft but full of worry. But Amelia didn't feel anything, just the hollow in her chest, pulsing with every heartbeat that used to feel warm. That night, Amelia didn't cry herself to sleep. She didn't sleep at all. She lay in bed, wide awake, staring at the ceiling like it held the answers she needed. And in the still dark silence, she thought just one thing over and over. Come back. Please, just come back. There are moments when the world seems to stop, not with a loud crash, but in silence. That's what it felt like for Amelia. 1 second, everything was normal. The next, her whole body froze. The message on her phone looked simple, even cold. Just a few plain words. But they slammed into her like an unexpected gust of icy wind. Her thumb hovered uncertainly over the screen, trembling. She didn't want to see what came next, but she had to. The photo took a second to load. When it finally appeared, the air left her lungs. It wasn't a clear photo. The lighting was harsh, flat, washing out the details. But even through the blur, the dog in the picture looked wrong. He seemed smaller now, curled tightly like he was trying to make himself invisible. His fur, once thick and soft, looked darker and matted, clinging to a body that was more bone than anything else. His back curved in a way that spoke of defeat, of exhaustion. He didn't even look at the camera. He was just there. Like he had given up on being seen. But then she noticed his eyes, and everything else faded. Amelia's breath caught so sharply it hurt. Her fingers dug into the edges of the phone. The dog's eyes weren't bright anymore. They weren't sharp or full of life. They weren't even focused on the lens. But deep in those tired, distant eyes was something she knew. Something that lived in her bones, in her heartbeat. That quiet, steady gaze. The silent way of saying, I'm here. It was the same look that had followed her across fields, up porch steps, into dreams and secrets whispered under the old oak tree. Her hand shook so hard she nearly dropped the phone. Grandma. Her voice cracked like shattered glass. It's him. I think it's him. Suddenly, everything inside her rushed to the surface. Doubts, hopes, fear all tangled into a storm. What if she was wrong? What if she was right? What if he didn't remember her at all? But louder than any of those thoughts was one undeniable truth. He's alive. That night, her grandparents didn't ask too many questions. They just nodded and told her they'd take her to the shelter in the morning. Amelia didn't sleep. Not even a little. She lay in bed with her phone clutched to her chest like it was the only thread connecting her to him. Every few minutes, she opened the photo again, zooming in until it blurred into colored dots, like she was trying to reach through the pixels. Please, she whispered over and over. Please let it be you. The shelter smelled sharp disinfectant and something heavier, fear, sadness. A young woman met them at the gate. Amelia's hand trembled as she held up the photo. The woman's eyes softened. He came in about a month ago, she said quietly. He's been through a lot. They walked through long halls of metal cages and echoing barks. The noise bounced off the concrete, but Amelia heard only the pounding of her heart. Her stomach twisted with every step. Then, at the very last row, the woman stopped. In the back corner of the kennel, curled up against the wall, was a German shepherd, still as stone. His head hung low, his body stiff with silence. He didn't move, didn't react. Amelia took a small step forward. Her sneakers made the faintest sound on the floor. She gripped the kennel bars, knuckles turning white, and then, Softly, barely more than a breath, she said the name, Ranger. It wasn't even a proper word. It was a memory shaped in air. The silence after felt heavy. He didn't move. Didn't. Look, it was like the world around him didn't matter anymore. Tears stung her eyes. Her chest tightened painfully. The years that separated them pressed down like a mountain. She wanted to call again, louder, stronger. But something inside her whispered, no. Don't break this moment. It's too delicate. Her lips moved before she could think. Two soft whistles, short, clear, the kind that once meant one thing only, come home. The world seemed to freeze again. Then something happened. So small, so quiet she almost missed it. One ear twitched, just the tiniest flicker, like a sleeping memory stirring inside a forgotten dream. Her heart jumped to her throat. The air changed. It felt warmer, alive with something old and precious. That tiny twitch broke through the silence like sunlight through a crack. Amelia's knees buckled. Her body knew before her mind did this was real. He was waking up. Hope wild, shaking, stubborn burned inside her chest. That small spark refused to die. And in that sacred, fragile moment, the cold shelter wasn't just a shelter anymore. It was the place where love had found its way back. The ride back to the farm felt like a dream Amelia didn't want to wake from. Ranger lay curled at her feet, trembling with each bump and turn. She didn't touch him yet. She just let her hand hover, close enough that he could feel her warmth. Let him choose. Presence before touch. Patience before claiming. When the truck turned onto the old dirt path, Amelia's chest tightened. The wooden gate came into view, the same one she had stood by years ago, calling into the wind for someone who never came. Her grandfather got out and pushed it open. The hinges creaked, a familiar sound, like an old song. Amelia stepped onto the porch and looked back. Ranger stood still behind her, ears up, body tense. He was listening to something only he could hear, something buried deep in memory. He sniffed. The air. And then something shifted. His eyes, which had been so guarded, flickered. A tiny spark lit. It was faint, but it was there. Come on, boy, Amelia whispered, her voice breaking on the last word. Ranger stepped forward, slow at first, then faster, like each paw remembered the way home. Inside, the house waited quiet and unchanged. The old blanket, the familiar corner, the scent of wood smoke. He walked through it slowly, his tail low, not in fear, but in recognition. And then, like the years had never happened, Ranger let out a low, soft whine. He ran the last few steps and buried his head in Amelia's lap like he was saying, I know you. I remember. Amelia dropped to her knees, arms wrapping around him, tears falling freely. You came home, she whispered, and in that moment they both knew he truly had.